President Truman spent only 2 Christmases at the White House during his tenure. The first was in 1947. It preceded the extensive renovations the presidential mansion would undergo during Truman's second term. On Christmas Eve at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, live from the White House, all 4 networks broadcast the annual Christmas tree ceremony. President Truman and his daughter Margaret lit the main tree on the south grounds before heading back inside to celebrate the holiday. The president spent his Christmas morning visiting with patients at the Naval Medical Center and the Walter Reed Hospital.
Fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver, the Lone Ranger.
The General Mills-sponsored Lone Ranger from WXYZ in Detroit first began airing on January 31st, 1933. The next year, it became one of the cornerstone programs which led to the formation of the Mutual Broadcasting System. The show moved to the Blue Network in 1942 and would remain on the network after it became ABC. In the fall of 1947, after 15 years in the same Monday, Wednesday, Friday time slots, the Lone Ranger nearly doubled its previous season's rating. It was the only program airing multiple times per week to crack the season's top 50. It climbed all the way to 35th with a rating of 16.4. It would remain the #1 multiple-run program for the next 3 seasons. On Christmas Eve, 1947 at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, while families gathered around the table, kids everywhere snuck away to hear the Lone Ranger broadcast of the Mission Bells.
With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver! Let's go, big fellow! I'm Silver! Hooray!
The mission of Santa Maria stood at the edge of a desert. Clustered around the main building were the house of Padre Felipe, the cabins of a few servants and Indians, and a lofty tower, the bells in which could be heard even farther than the tower could be seen. It was the hour of vespers when the Lone Ranger and Tonto turned their horses into the mission courtyard. Seeing no one around, they reined up near the bell tower.
Easy, big fella. There's the Padre.
This is a mission. Why are you here in a mask?
This letter will introduce me. Please read it.
Very well.
It's from another Padre, whom I need not name. You know him well.
So I do. He calls you a good friend. That is enough for me.
He told me that you asked his advice and help in the matter of a missing book.
Oh, now I understand your presence.
What was the nature of the book?
It was the journal of the founder of this mission, a handwritten manuscript bound in horsehide. I discovered it only recently among the many old documents in the mission archives. Indeed, I had not found time to read it before it disappeared.
Could it have been mislaid?
No, my son. Much as I regret to say so, it must have been stolen by a man I trusted.
I see.
He is Stephen Dunn, a land agent with an office in the town of Casa Grande. I often let him do research work in the mission archives. He alone had an opportunity to remove the journal.
All right, we'll see that man, Padre.
Thank you, my sons. But use no violence, I beg you.
We won't if it can be avoided. Steady there, Silver. Easy.
Adios.
Adios. On, Silver.
As the masked man and Indian set out for Casa Grande, which was some 15 miles from the mission, Stephen Dunn opened his office door to two burly men in rough clothes.
Howdy, Scrap. Howdy, Gus. Howdy. Come in, grab some chairs.
We heard you wanted to see us, boss.
I sure do, boys.
You want us to help you fleece another tenderfoot?
Not this time. I've hit on something a lot bigger than selling worthless land.
Well, spring it.
Yeah, you see this thing?
We'd be blind if we didn't. There's no notebook.
It's the journal of the Padre who built Santa Maria Mission. He wrote it better than 200 years ago.
Yeah, what of it?
Right here, he tells of coming to these parts with a bunch of Spanish soldiers. They'd been to a mine somewhere and had a heap of gold.
You aim to sell a worked-out mine on the strength of that?
Now, let me go on. The Spaniards lost most of their horses, so they couldn't pack all the gold or get all the men back across the desert to Mexico.
Yeah?
The old Padre and some others stayed behind and started the mission.
So what happened to the gold?
They couldn't use it to buy anything, so the Padre made it into the 5 bells at the mission. There was no iron around, and the gold worked up easy.
You can't stuff us, boss. Gold won't ring.
Oh, won't it? A gold piece rings.
Well, that's hard gold. It's mixed with something.
So was the gold used in the bells.
5 gold bells. They're worth a couple fortunes.
Yeah, they're mighty heavy. We can get them down with rope and tackle and haul them off in a wagon. If we're careful, we won't even wake up the Padre and his engines.
Melt them down that old smelter you've been trying to sell.
That was my plan.
When do we go after the bells?
Tonight. I've got a wagon waiting at the corral. It's loaded with all the gear, provisions, and water we'll need.
Now, wait a minute. There's one thing I want to know before we start. What did Gus and me get out of this?
Why, the usual 10%?
It isn't enough for a big job. We want equal shares for equal dangers.
So that's how it is.
Gus is drawing.
No, you don't stab me again.
I don't need to. You're finished.
Let's get out of here.
There's no need to hurry. Nobody comes to this office at night.
I got the book.
Leave it. Dunn stole it. When the sheriff finds it, he'll figure anybody low enough to rob a Padre needed killing.
Yeah, but it tells about the bells.
Tear those pages out and we'll burn them later.
Hey, I savvy. There. That's it.
Now we'll go after those bells.
Meanwhile, the Lone Ranger and Tonto had arrived in Casa Grande.
At 7:30 Pacific time over ABC, Lionel Barrymore took to the air in Mayor of the Town, new to the upstart network after a summer move from CBS. The show was the perfect vehicle for Barrymore, rich with both warm-hearted humor and good-natured grumbling. Agnes Moorehead co-starred with Conrad Binion, Priscilla Lyon, and Gloria McMillan. On Christmas Eve, the usual episode was preempted, so that Barrymore could play the title role of Ebenezer Scrooge in the annual broadcast of A Christmas Carol.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On this Christmas Eve, once again, Lionel Barrymore sets aside his role as mayor of the town to take you back to a Christmas Eve 100 years ago with his unforgettable portrayal of Scrooge. And now, Lionel Barrymore in Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Once upon a Christmas Eve, on a mean and shabby street in London, stood the warehouse of Scrooge and Marley. Marley was 7 years dead, but Scrooge never bothered to paint out the name. It was a waste of time, paint, and money. Oh, he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, was Ebenezer Scrooge, a squeezing, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner. A frosty rime was on his head and on his eyebrows and on his wiry chin. And the cold within him iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it out 1 degree at Christmas. A fact that could be attested by Bob Cratchit, his overworked and shivering clerk.
And what do you think you're about to do with that coal scuttle, Mr. Cratchit?
Well, you see, my stove's gone out, Mr. Scrooge.
Indeed.
It was a very small fire to begin with, sir.
Tell me, Mr. Cratchit, you like working here?
Oh, yes, indeed, sir.
And you have need of the 15 bob I pay you every week?
Need? Oh, yes, indeed, sir. You see, there's my wife, Tiny Tim, and Belinda, and Martha, and...
Well, then may I suggest you forget the fire and get back to your work? Unless, of course, you would prefer to keep Christmas by losing your situation.
Losing? Oh, no, sir. I'll get on with copying those letters at once, sir. I'm very sorry, Mr. Scrooge. It won't happen again, sir. I promise you.
And chase that blasted little sweep away from the door. Christmas carol.
Yes, no wind that blew was bitterer than Ebenezer Scrooge. No pelting rain less open to entreaty. And what did Scrooge think of Christmas? Well, on this particular Christmas Eve, his only nephew, Fred, stopped by the warehouse to see him.
Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you.
Humbug.
Christmas, a humbug? Oh, come now. You don't mean that.
I do. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Very well, then. What right have you to be dismal? You're rich enough.
Humbug.
Oh, don't be cross, Uncle.
What else can I be when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas. Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? Time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. A time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you.
Uncle.
Yeah. If I had my way, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips would be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
But you don't keep it.
Well, let me leave it alone, then. Much good may it do you. Much good it ever has done you.
Oh, I've derived good from many things by which I haven't profited. And Christmas is one of them.
Yeah.
I've always thought of Christmas as a good time. A kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. The only time in the long calendar of the year when people open their shut-up hearts and think of their fellow men.
Humbug.
And therefore, although it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
You're a very powerful speaker, sir. I wonder you don't go into Parliament.
Oh, don't be angry, Uncle. Come and dine with us tomorrow.
Good afternoon, nephew.
But why won't you?
Good afternoon.
Well, I'm sorry to find you so resolute. But Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
No, Scrooge didn't believe for a moment that Christmas was a kind and charitable time. He proved it that very same afternoon when two gentlemen stopped at his warehouse to collect his Christmas donation to the poor.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute.
Indeed. Tell me, are there no prisons?
Oh, plenty of prisons.
And the workhouses, are they still in operation?
They are, although I wish I could say they were not.
The treadmill and the poor law, are they still in full vigor?
Both very busy, sir.
Very well, then. What do you want of me?
A few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth.
Now, what shall we put you down for?
Nothing.
Oh, you wish to be anonymous.
I wish to be left alone.
Mr. Scrooge.
I don't make myself merry at Christmas, and I can't afford to make a lot of idle people merry. I help support the prisons and the workhouses. They cost enough, heaven knows. And those who are badly off they can go there.
But many can't go there, and many would rather die than go there.
Oh, if they'd rather die, they better go and do it. And decrease the surplus population. Besides, I find it quite enough for a man to mind his own business and not interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Mayor of the Town became the first program to increase its rating by moving to ABC from CBS or NBC, jumping 65%.
When Scrooge left the ancient warehouse, the fog was so thick that he had some difficulty in locating the lowering pile of buildings where he had a gloomy suite of rooms.
The boar's hand in hand where I, bedecked with bays and rosemary, and I pray you, my masters, be merry.
I read somewhere along the line that when you started as Gildersleeve in the movies, you had to go on a diet to gain weight.
Well, yes. When I started doing the Gildersleeve character in pictures, I only weighed about 195, which was pretty big for my size, but it wasn't big enough, and I was quite young. So I did. I started eating things, that would make me heavier. And by the time I got to my own series, which was then about 1942, a year after I started the radio show, I actually weighed 227. And when I decided I didn't want to do any more of those pictures because I wasn't very happy with them, I just went on a diet and lost 50 pounds. RKO hadn't seen me for about 2 months because we were on a sort of a sabbatical. And, of course, the head of the company almost collapsed when he saw me. I looked 15 years younger. I was down to 176.
Oh, my goodness. Boy,
I remained that way for an awful long time.
By Christmas Eve 1947, The Great Gildersleeve was in the middle of its 7th season on the air. A move to Wednesday evenings at 8:30 had resulted in a ratings rise to 18.1 that December. Thanks to the title role, Harold Perry became a hit, starring in 9 Gildersleeve films. On Christmas Eve, he played his biggest part yet, as Santa Claus.
The Kraft Foods Company presents The Great Gildersleeve.
I'm back.
The Great Gildersleeve is brought to you by the Kraft Foods Company, makers of a complete line of famous quality food products. Tonight's story is written by Gene Stone and Jack Robinson with music by Jack Meakin. Included in the cast are Walter Tetley, Louise Erickson, Lillian Randolph, Earl Ross, and Dick LeGrand. And starring Harold Perry as the Great Gildersleeve. Well, it's the day before Christmas, and the Gildersleeve household is decked out merry and bright. In the living room, there's holly and mistletoe, and a Christmas tree glittering with tinsel. And upstairs, why, who's that? Looks like old St. Nick himself with his red coat and white whiskers. Let's take a closer look. Well, it's our old friend, the Great Gildersleeve.
Oh, don't pull that belt so tight, Marjorie.
All right, Uncle Mort.
I've got to breathe, That's better.
And here's your cap. Here, let me put it on for you.
That's all right.
Oh, still, Uncle, you don't want the tassel in your face. You can look in the mirror when I get through.
I want to see what I look like.
You look like Santa Claus.
I do?
Uncle, don't fidget.
Well, hurry up.
Oh, all right. Go look at yourself.
Say, not bad. Wouldn't know myself behind these white whiskers. Does the coat fit all right in the back?
Yes, Uncle.
Guess I look pretty good, huh, Margie?
Yes, you look fine.
Better than the Santa Claus at Hogan Brothers, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, let's see. Hey, I look good sideways, too.
Uncle, don't be such a ham.
I'm Santa Claus, a jolly old fellow.
Oh, brother. You better take the costume off now and save it for tonight.
Yeah, maybe I ought to wear it for a while, sort of get used to the character, huh?
What an excuse.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I want to get it all wrinkled. Well, as long as I got it on, might as well go down and show it to Bertie. As long as I got it on.
Uncle, you're such a child.
Yeah, I'll get in the sleigh behind my reindeer and ride away. Giddy up!
Uncle, be careful.
Come on, you reindeer. Giddy up, Prancer and Dancer. Come, Dunder, come, Blitzen.
Did you copy, Miss Gildersleeve?
No, Bertie. I just wanted to show you my costume.
Oh. Oh, it looks fine, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Yeah, glad you like it. Dr. Needham asked me to play Santa Claus at his church tonight to the kids.
That's nice. You sure fooled me, Mr. Gildersleeve. If I didn't know it was you, I never would have recognized you.
Really?
Yes, sir. You sure fooled me with them whiskers and everything. And them boots. You sure look fat all right with that pillow stuck under your coat.
Bertie, that's no pillow.
Oh. Excuse me, Mr. Gildersleeve.
That's all right. Guess I am getting a little stout. You feed me too well, Bertie.
Oh, you want me to take the presents out of the closet now and put them under the tree?
Please, Bertie. Got to go down to Hogan Brothers and pick up Leroy's model airplane.
Didn't you get that yet, Mr. Gildersleeve?
Well, I haven't had time. But I'm going to get it right now.
That airplane, that's all Leroy's been talking about.
Yeah, I know.
Model airplane, morning, noon, and night.
Yes, Bertie.
That's all he talked about.
Yes, sir.
Come on, if you don't believe me, come on in the house.
Sounds like Leroy.
I want to get out of here before he starts asking me questions about that airplane. And see you later, Bertie.
Santa Claus. I'd have sworn he had a pillow under there. Yeah, I guess I better establish some food controls around here.
Come on in, the tree's in there, and it's bigger than yours. It is not. It is too. Look at it. Oh, hi, Bertie.
Hello, Leroy. And who's this little man?
Nah, he's just a new kid. He said his Christmas tree was bigger than ours. It is bigger.
Don't believe I ever saw him before.
My name is Donald Robert White. I just moved here.
Oh, a new friend. That's nice.
He's no friend of mine. He's just been hanging around here. He's a twerp.
Oh, now, Leroy. He looks like a fine little boy.
When the blue of the night meets the gold of the day, someone waits for me.
Carpenter welcoming you to Philco Radio Time, produced and transcribed in Hollywood with John Scott Trotter, his chorus and orchestra, the Charioteers, Skitch Henderson, and starring Bing Crosby. As is Bing's custom at Christmas time, he opens the program with Adeste Fidelis. And as usual, he will sing it first in Latin, and then with a studio audience joining him singing it in English.
Yes, Ken, I think it would be very fitting if our guests here would join in a chorus. Come all ye faithful.
Bing, I think it'd be nice if the home folks, the folks listening in all over the world, would join in, too.
Oh, it would indeed. Gather round, folks, wherever you may be, and help us sing this eternal hymn.
At 9 p.m., Bing Crosby's Philco Radio Time took to the air on ABC. It was a rough season for Bing. While ratings soared, his shrank, thanks in part to a smaller roster of network talent that could be featured on the show. While families in California sipped eggnog and counted down the hours, Bing did what he always did best, bring the joy of the holidays into the home. With Bing singing, it's a good time to hear reflections from the performers who shared a love of the medium of radio.
Speaking of which, Harry and I frequently were twin villains on a show. We never knew whether Harry was going to be the high-voiced villain or the low-voiced. Whoever got the first line had his choice.
You see, I always felt that we had to work with an all-physical person. We always worked from the full person. At least I did, and I know that all of us tried to work that way because that's the only honest way to do it. You have to have a person who lives and breathes and walks and is alive rather than just turning on a voice.
One person, one individual sitting alone in his room with his radio now is a part of that show, is part of that performance, because he with his imagination, or she with her imagination, builds the castle, makes the river, and flies the ocean, and so forth. You bring your imagination. You are a part of the performance in radio.
Everybody sort of ate at the same restaurant, and it was the group mixed together. The one would work at one station. A lot of times I have a couple of the old scripts here, and I see where old people like Virginia Gregg and Jack Crucian, they were on several shows. Most of them, as a matter of fact. People would just work the same show
I enjoyed the people in it, too. There was a lot of loyalty, camaraderie. See, we were together so much.
I think there is something so special between the listener and the other side of the microphone in the studio. Very special. I don't feel I'm talking to two men now. I feel I'm talking to a whole world. All of the people that you have created for me because of what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Skitch Henderson has jetted in for the holidays, and he now joins me in Mel Torme and Bob Wells' musical Christmas card, The Christmas Song. Art ready, Lyle?
The extraordinary thing was the care that went into radio shows. There was a kind of perfection about the radio actor that was extraordinary. It was a very small group of people, and I always felt myself enormously privileged that I was able to join that group because they didn't take everybody in by a long shot.
We were a family. It was a nucleus of people that you never grew away from, and they were dear, wonderful people. On television, you know, you do a show, you never see anybody again.
I mean, you've got the script in front of you. How can you... It was wonderful. It was like stealing money, I always felt, and who's against that? I loved radio, and it was, as I say, it was like a steal. Those days were just wonderful because the stress was not there.
No, there were a great many marvelous, marvelous actresses in radio. Oh, so many of them were my idols. You know, Aggie Moorehead, Ann Seymour, Elspeth Eric. Oh, there were so many. Some of them I hated. I really hated them.
Why did you hate them?
Oh, when they got the parts I wanted.
Oh.
Of all branches, radio is the best. It's the most imaginative and the most participatory. It's the most involving. And I prefer it to all the others.
And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.
Christmas Eve 1947 was one of the highest rated days in radio history.
It'll be like Christmas without mistletoe or something. We're prepared, but not going to disappoint you because John Scott Trotter has assembled a bouncy version of the...
On Christmas morning, Bob hoped Bing Crosby and Dorothy Lamour's latest Road to film debuted in theaters nationwide. Filmed the previous winter, it was financed by Bing, Hope, and Paramount. Road to Rio made $4.5 million at the U.S. box office and was the sixth highest grossing film of 1947.
Where are we heading for, Dad?
Wide open spaces where men are men.
And the women?
No women. That's how we get into this thing.
Yikes!
Head south, boy. It's going to be a cold winter.
What do you say we book our act around here for a while?
Both Crosby and Lamour appeared on Hope's radio program on December 23rd. It helped buoy his ratings. After 4 seasons as the top show on the air, in 1947-48, he slipped to 5th. The following season, his rating fell under 20 points for the first time since 1938. Bob Hope saw the writing on the wall. By the end of May of 1950, he was on TV.